We are live. We are in the building, and I'm back in the office. What's going on, D Style? How you doing on this Monday night?
Man, I am doing great. Shout out to the audio audience as well. iHeart, Amazon Music, the whole nine. Shout out to you guys as well.
And I know you're super hyped after that Berlanga performance, right? You're super hyped.
Woo! Man. I mean, I'm so hyped. I mean, it was like Ali Frazier all over again, with Rose and Berlanga in there. It was just like, peanut butter and jelly. I just couldn't get enough of it, really.
Shout out to JC. Shout out to Chauncey Pearl. Shout out to Major Key Boxing. And do me a favor, hit that like button as y'all come in, and we're going to talk some boxing tonight. And look, man. Look, and we had some positive things to go off of this past weekend. Alexis Rocha, great performance.
Right.
In the main event, we had Xander Zayas continues to look like the guy that's the future of Puerto Rican boxing. So we got that too. So we got some things to go off of. Regis Prograis won. He called out Jack Catterall. He's likely going to get the Zepeda fight. So some good things, some positive things in the boxing world. But let's start with Blair the Flair Cobbs in his fight against Alexis Rocha. What'd you think about that fight right there?
Woo! You know what he forgot? He forgot to put his opponent in a turnbuckle. And I do the back chop on the chest and they go, woo! Like, he forgot to do that. Maybe that's what, and he did do did you see how he did, like Ric Flair would do that thing where he would like just fall down after they hit him hard. He did do that. So he lived up to the Flair, but he forgot the part where like he cheats to win. There was no low blow. There was no something like that. You know what I mean? But in all seriousness, man, how about this? How about Spence and Crawford coming together, right? Teaming up to bash the guy. Like they got together. As one. Maybe that's a good sign. Maybe we can't get these guys to sit down and have negotiate a fight, but we could get them together to bash the shit out of Blair the Flair. It's unbelievable how this like old prospect pretty much like had their attention though. Like they were watching. Which tells you, talk your shit and people will watch. Now you have to talk your shit and produce now. You know what I mean? Like Clubber Lang isn't Clubber Lang if he's saying, hey woman, you want to come to my apartment? I'll show you a real man. But then he's getting knocked out by some other dude. Like Rocky would be like, what the fuck is this guy? You know what I mean? like you gotta like win, knock dudes out, and talk. It's all the above thing. You know what I mean? Like Ali talking shit to listen doesn't mean anything if he gets knocked out in the next fight.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, stylistically, I liked Rocha. Rocha's a nice guy to look out for at welterweight.
Bust pipes, ladies and gentlemen. I've been saying that for years here. Pressure, bust,
southpaw.
Pipes.
He is not afraid. He's a guy to look out for at welterweight.
Not afraid.
But
to make a stand.
The problem with Cobbs,
everybody,
we'll do the self-promotion thing in a little while because I got stuff to say on that. But the issue with Cobbs stylistically is too much nervous energy, too much bouncing around. He had points in the fight where in it looked like he is capable of doing that, where he could have just stood his ground and backed Rocha up. But it gets to the point where he's just bouncing on his feet and backing up. And you have a guy who wants to come forward, and you're not trying to stop him from doing that at all. And all the energy is coming one way, and he had no answer for it ever. There was never a second in that fight where I felt like Cobbs could win the fight. And this
I'll tell you what it is.
The even odds fight, D-style. Rocha was the slight favorite going in, but it didn't look like that. It looked like complete mismatch. So you got to give credit to Rocha. He exceeded the odds.
Rocha beat the Roach. You know what I mean? Like he's like I'm just saying. Let me tell you something. I saw like Roach landed one of the biggest shots of the fight, and Rocha just smiled at him and kept coming. You know what I mean? Like he was playing a little too much. I mean, look, credit to Garcia. He got on his way. He stopped messing around and keep doing what you got to do, right? But I do think some of that was necessary to mess with Roach a little bit. You know what I mean? it does something to a guy when he's used to guys crumbling in front of him when they land that the big shot. When they finally do land it, and the dude smiles at you and keeps coming, like he walks through your punches. That does something to somebody, and Roach just doesn't have the experience to deal with it. You know what I mean? Like he just didn't, or the stamina for that matter. I mean, the guy was out of gas late in that fight.
He was a mess. And speaking of another guy,
gas prices are kind of high though. Maybe he couldn't afford to put enough gas in his tank. You know what I mean? So maybe that's why he lost. I'm just saying.
But it reminds me of another guy who fought that night, Berlanga. Edgar Berlanga is used to hitting guys and they just wilt. So when he has guys in front of him who do not wilt, what's left? What's left of them? So the problem that I see with Berlanga, and what I like about Berlanga is he could put fans in seats, right? So we'll get into that in a minute as well, the promotional skills that these guys have. And Top Rank has done a good job of promoting Berlanga up to this point and matchmaking. But now that he has to step up, and Rose is a guy, if you're that dude, Rose is a guy that you should do what Triple G did to him, right? I mean, he gave Triple G some moments early in the fight, and then all of a sudden, Triple G starts to annihilate him. That's what you're supposed to do if you're the real deal. And Rose is now older. And Berlanga just couldn't do anything with Berlanga won the fight, give him credit for that, but it's too much one piece, 1-2 piece. There's no combination punches.
Lead hook, yeah.
Right. There's no, like you said, there's no versatility to his offensive output. And also, there's no mixture between offense and defense, right? We always talk about how the great fighters, there's a mixture. It looks like it's all together. In the movement, the offensive movement and the defensive movement is together. With Berlanga, it looks like it's separated, right? It looks like he goes on offense and then he's playing defense. So to me, Berlanga looks like an overhyped prospect coming up that's going to come back down now that he has to prove himself against top opposition. But what do you think about the fight? And I'll also say Top Rank still, like, I'm tired of saying this, they have to get on with the card. They got to get better movement and flow with their cards. It's too much talking in between fights. You got to get to the main event earlier. But that's my spiel.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, this is brought to you by Bud Light Next. Okay, shout out. But I will say this is not that bad actually. But it tastes like water, but still. Berlanga. I did a whole video about him. And it's like this. I could sum it up this way. The problem with Berlanga is the hype and the expectations versus where he's at. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you right now, Bradley said it post fight, and shout out to him. But I've been saying this. A lot of us have been saying this actually. That first round knockout streak, as exciting as it was, and it was the worst thing that could have happened to him because when did he develop? He never got a chance to develop. He never got a chance to experience certain things to know what to do in that situation. Like what he's experiencing now, like he just did against, Rolls, someone's fighting negative like that. He should have already had experience against a guy like that, but he hasn't. You get what I mean? Like he's never really experienced that. It's almost like.
But there have been guys who have run through guys the first 10, 15 fights, like
not in the first round.
Yeah,
like we're talking about. He fought more rounds the last 3 fights than he had his entire career before that in 16 fights.
Mm-hmm.
And how much are you going to get out of one round? Like how much, like not every round is equal. Like the 4th round of a fight, you're accumulating everything from the first on. Like there's a lot of like adjustments and things you've done at that point, right? And Berlanga just hasn't had that. Like I know he's 25 years old, and I know what people are going to say. Look, he's 25. Come on. It's time to throw him out there. Like I don't know. Like if they just slow down and develop him for another 3 years,
can you do that though?
Yes,
why not? That at this point?
Why not? He'll be 28.
He's gonna catch a lot of heat. He'll catch a lot of heat.
Okay, but he's going to catch as much heat as if he gets knocked out. Like right, he's not ready for Rosado right now. He's not. He's not ready for a lot of these guys. He just isn't.
So you don't think at a certain point a guy is who he is,
Cuban
though?
dude, the Cuban 168. I forget his name. Man, the 168-pound Cuban, the regular champion WBA, destroys him. Morale Jr. He'll destroy him.
Mm-hmm.
Like he'll annihilate Berlanga.
Plant beats him.
Plant embarrasses him.
Billy Joe
like
Saunders
it's not even close, dude. 3 fights ago, before he went the distance, people were talking about how this is the guy that's going to beat Canelo. You know, like okay, you know, like he needs experience, man. Like
Andre beats him easily.
He can put it together. He just needs a couple more fights, in my opinion. Now, and then people are trashing him. They're like, oh, like Rose lost to Triple G. Well, do you guys think Triple G is good or not? Like, what does that even mean?
So you don't think a guy is who he is at some point, though? 25 years old. What is he? 19 fights in?
It's hard to say because he hasn't been properly developed. You know, it's kind of like the guy that's been behind the starting quarterback for years, and yeah, he's up there in age, like he's 26 or something, but we can't like get on him if his first few games don't go properly. You know what I mean? Like, because he hasn't been starting like that. Like that's how I feel. Like, he needs another 2-3 years. You give him another, and he needs to be active. Obviously, that's another thing. Keep him active. Keep him away for it's. They're not going to do this, by the way, just for the record, because Top Rank is like now. You know what I mean? But they got to do what they got to do.
And that's the thing too. Like, you got to keep them active. And I just don't have confidence that they're going to keep these fighters active. And more on that in a little while as well, because I got something coming up on that. But
yeah, but they got to treat Berlanga like the prospect that he is. Like the one thing Berlanga has, it's not like they given him. If they had given him a title or something by now, like, I would have been like, okay, hey, it's that whatever. No time for development. You got to fight the contenders, right? But he's not there yet.
This is another guy who beats Berlanga, Beck the Bully. And that's another positive thing.
Maybe
Beck the Bully needed to catch a body after the Rosado fight.
Yeah,
he needed to catch a body, and he did. And it was just a body.
Is
right?
that a guarantee though?
Fight.
Is that a guarantee? Like Beck the Bully's defense isn't exactly.
Beck the Bully could walk into something. You're right. He showed that. But that's what I'm saying. Is Berlanga the type of guy to set up that punch? Like Gabe Rosado set up that punch beautifully, and that was crafty.
Right.
And
no, there's a lot of work
up to that point.
This is what I'll say: is Berlanga ever going to be the best pound for pound fighter in boxing? No, right? No. But could he be a bona fide top 10 168 pounder? Yes.
You know who he reminds me of, kind of, when we talk about super middleweights. Remember Alan Green was coming through ESPN Friday nights and destroying guys, and then he moves up to Showtime, and then you saw his ceiling. Edwin Rodriguez, another guy at 168 who people were saying was a top 10 super middleweight. And then when he stepped up, you saw his ceiling. Berlanga seems like the same type of guy, right? Like he looked otherworldly against some of these guys. And then when you step him up from the minor leagues, from AAA up to the majors, you start to see that ceiling. And I think that's what we're seeing here with Berlanga is that ceiling.
The problem with Berlanga, he hasn't had a chance to develop early. And I know people are losing their patience. But then again, like when people go like this, like, oh, he's already 25. They make it sound like they've been actively watching Berlanga for the last 6 years or something. Like, y'all only been watching the kid for 2 years. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like y'all been like invested in this guy for years now. People are just looking at the age, and I hear it, right? Oh, Teofimo became champion at 23, and Canelo was champion at 22, and Berlanga's already 25, but like not everyone is ready at the same time, though. Like it's like this. Wilfredo Benitez was world champion at 17 years old. Does that mean that everybody should just at 17 should be fighting world champions? Like it's just by that logic, right? Like not like it's just. Let him develop.
But you know why I think people are getting impatient is because, I mean, in a lot of instances, it's warranted because you're waiting for this picture to develop and develop, and it's taking so long. It's like, please just throw this guy in there to see if he's gonna poop or get off the pot. And
What I mean, Kelly, they're throwing him in there with guys he's supposed to look good against, and it's not happening.
true.
What's going to happen when you put him against a guy that's supposedly the leap of faith? Like he's not even he's that leap. He's not even able to take a baby step. Like he ain't ready for no leap right now. Like I don't. I think they need to put him in there with guys that could potentially beat him. Like they need to find a 50-50 fight for him. Maybe the Bake the Bully fight is that fight, although I would favor Bake the Bully, right? But
Great fight.
I think Bake the Bully beats him though. I think Rosado beats him. I don't think Rosado even has a hard time with him right now.
Yeah, I think Rosado, and somebody threw out that matchup on Twitter. Give us Rosado versus Berlanga, Puerto Rican Day Parade weekend.
And maybe in the long run, that if he goes in there and he just boxes his ears off and beats him, hey, sometimes the Al isn't the worst thing in the world. Like, you know, maybe the Al will take some of that pressure off so he could continue to develop, and then, you know, he improves. Like look, Rosado, to his credit, is the definition of a guy that, look, he got knocked out by Angulo like in the second round. Like, you know what I mean? But he went back to drawing board, kept getting better. He would get beat. He would go back to drawing board, get better, right? So like, is that the route Berlanga's going to have to take? And does he have that mental toughness to keep doing that? I don't know, right? But hey, man, I just think I'm just saying, give him 2-3 more years. And a lot of fight fans are like, no, look at them. Like, they're taking out the pitchforks and and everything, and they're like, we want him to fight now. Like I'm just like, why? Well, hey, Callis, why do you guys need him to step up now? Like, why is it necessary? For what?
Berlanga?
Yeah, like what? Like,
I don't need him to step up to the top level, but what I'm saying is, like, you gave us Steve Rolls, give us the next guy above Steve Rolls. Like, I don't want you to go backwards. Or
okay,
if you're not going to do that, stay active. But here's what's going to happen, D-Style, is he's going to fight twice in 2022. And that's fine if you're fighting top competition, but don't fight Steve Rolls and then some guy on Steve Rolls' level are below Steve Rolls in the second fight. You got to give me something else. Or what else am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to be excited about if that's what I'm going to get from Berlanga? You got to give me something to be excited about and follow his career, right? So I'm not.
I agree.
I'm not asking for him to fight Caleb Plant next. I'm not asking him to be the Canelo Slayer right now.
Right.
What I'm asking for is, give us a reason to put you in the top 10. If you're not in the top 10, stay active.
I just think he needs more. Like, look, he was breathing out of his mouth by like the 8th round.
Right.
I don't even know if he could go 12 at this point. Like, you know what I mean? So I just, he needs rounds. He needs and by the way, this is why I'm a person that needs to see it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, look, she's the big sister. I love her. She's great. But Christine on the round table was telling us that oh no, he could box. Believe me, he could box, right? I know he's taking everybody out in the first round, D-Style, but don't worry about it. He could box. Like, well, I want to see it though. I remember I would tell people that I want to see him actually put on a boxing performance in a distance. And so far, I gotta say, he looks. This is what I see when I see Berlanga. I see somebody with an identity crisis. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know what would have made the Steve Rolls fight a lot easier for him? If he wasn't looking for the knockout every second of the fight.
Jab, jab, jab.
Yeah, just box him, and if the knockout comes, it comes. You know what I mean? So he hasn't really used his quote-unquote boxing, right? And I want to know, where did the push-ups go? Remember we would blow somebody out in the first round and he made a mistake, so they made him do push-ups?
Mm-hmm.
What happened to that? Because he made a lot of mistakes. He owes us a lot of push-ups. All right. I'm just saying, but look, I just don't. Maybe it's because who's being the harshest to Berlanga? It's not even like you or like it's the people that are really hyping him up when they're knocking everybody out in the first round. They're being the harshest to him right now. Oh, he's a failure. He's a disappointment. He let us down. While you guys put that pressure on him, like imagine being a fighter and you're being told, look, if Triple G knocked him out in 4, you better knock him out in 3, or you're a failure. Well, what does that do to the psyche of a fighter after the bell to end the 3rd round rings? And he goes back, and you could see it in his body language. He walks back to that corner, and he's like, "Fuck," I like that point where they said I'm a failure. I've already reached it. And what happened? He starts getting more desperate. He starts becoming more obvious because what was Rose doing, Calix? Like I'm gonna throw the right hand right now. Like that's what Rose was doing the whole fight.
Yep.
Like he couldn't figure that out because he was too. His mind was. He was confused. He was trying. His mind was the same way his corner was. You see all those voices screaming at him.
Yeah. So
he's a fighter without an identity right now. At some point, as a fighter, you got to know what your identity is. It doesn't matter what level you're at. Like Arturo Gatti knew who he was and what he had to do every fight.
It's not only that. I'll take it one step further. And and by the way, hit that like button. Shout out to the chat. And I'm about to get to comments in a minute, but I want to make this quick point. People don't focus on the fans. People just focus on the fighter. So you're talking about Berlanga not having an identity, and Berlanga not knowing who Berlanga is. Well, it's super confusing for the fans because we have to know who a fighter is, and that's what I'm saying. He's already filling up. He's already selling. Like he's selling in New York. Okay, so people are going there to see a specific thing, and then when they don't get it, and then you say, okay, let's move back, let's step back, let's put him back against, treat him like a prospect. People are like, wait. This isn't what I was being sold. And that's the issue. That's the disconnect is you can't just tell people, oh, we're going to go back to prospect mode. And if you're going to do that, at least do it several times a year. But that's not what they're going to do. I already know it.
I agree. Yeah.
So that's the disconnect there is we focus on the fighter.
It's all Snoop Dogg's fault, bro.
Yeah.
Ever since Snoop Dogg like did that video with him where they were both like dancing in the studio to music, ever since that, Berlanga's never been the same.
Fat Joe.
Fat Joe, see what Fat Joe said?
Triple H.
Yeah, he's like, oh, come on, man. He's only lost to Triple H. Like, what? What has happened? But the reality is this, man. Okay.
I'll tell you what, though, D-Style, this guy right here, Xander Zayas, there is no identity crisis with him.
Xander knows who he is. Like this. I think at this point, you have to know who you are, right? And that's why I mentioned Arturo Gatti, right? Arturo Gatti knew who he was at some point. Mickey Ward knew who he was. Manny Pacquiao, De La Hoya, like it doesn't matter what level you're at. At some point, you know who you are and what you need to do to maximize your ability to win. And to me, instead of going through this identity crisis, what Berlanga needs to do is, one, you're a power puncher, right? Go out there and seek and destroy. But let it happen. Like work the jab, cut off. Well, he needs to work on cutting off the ring. Period. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Cut off that ring. Make the ring smaller for your opponent. Continue that pressure. Okay, and just believe in your methodology and do not do not leave that. Like continue it. You know what I mean? And that's what he needs to do. What he doesn't need to do is decide to be a guy that's in a box on his feet some rounds, and in some rounds he goes forward. Some rounds he wants to go backwards. Some rounds he wants to go forward. Like, what are you doing? He's getting all this different advice from people, right? And then add the pressure to it. You know what I would have told him? Yeah, all that shit you see on Twitter now, all that. Oh, you gotta beat him faster than Triple G did. All that, throw that shit away. That shit don't matter. Okay. Rolls today is not the same Rolls he was when he fought Triple J, right? 2 different nights, 2 different circumstances. Go out there and just do what you got to do. All right. Imagine if Mayweather went out there like to fight Judah and he was like, well, I got to beat him faster than Castasu did because otherwise Castasu's better than me. Like, no, he just went out there and he beat Judah in his own way. You know? Like that's what you need to do. Like go out there and beat them in your own way. Because what did Rose? All Rose did, he didn't really do much. All he did was weather the early storm. Okay, stay away from his hook.
He's a vet. He's a vet.
Yeah, like he got a little savvy in there. He landed he would pick the spots to land that right hand, and then once he got the confidence, he started using that jab, right, later in that fight. But that's all he really did, But I hope Berlanga could learn from this, okay? And I do think a lot of this unable to get the knockout is mental. I think it's mental. I think he's not setting it up, and it's become a mental liability for him, in my opinion.
Right.
It's too much pressure, bro. Like how many fighters do you know, Calix, that could properly be themselves if they were expected to knock everybody out early in the fight?
None.
Sanders Zayas just went the distance against the dude he fought because he wasn't looking for the knockout. He was just doing what he needed to do.
And people are still praising him because he looked good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, first of all, shout out to G Funky on his daughter. And I hope you've been storing up on some sleep. But
he needs to get it in now. He needs to get it in.
Zayas, what I like about him, activity. What did he fight? 6 times last year? Something like that? I could be wrong. Could have been 5, 6 times.
He's active.
So he's active. That means he's staying in the gym. He doesn't need 8 to 10 week training camps. So they're bringing him up intelligently as a prospect, getting him in front of people. People are seeing him constantly every other month, and he's getting highlight reel knockouts up to this point. And then this is what we saw, what we've been asking from Berlanga, right? He went into a fight where he had to go to a decision, and he still looked good doing it. So I don't think Top Rank has any concerns about stepping him up at this point. I don't think as a fan, I don't have any concerns of him a year or two from now going 12 rounds and having his mouth open in the second round. So there's no identity crisis there. And you can stay active and you can treat a fighter this way if you have trust in him. We say it all the time. We know you can tell most of what you need to know from a fighter by how his handlers handle him. And Top Rank is handling Xander Zayas like a guy they trust. And Berlanga not as much. So I think the more I see, and you posed the question last year, is Zayas the next guy for Puerto Rico? And I was hesitant. Not so much anymore. I think he's the guy.
The obviously nothing's guaranteed in life, but the trajectory is there to me. Yeah. You know what I mean? And look, I mean, he ended the fight landing although you already know my skepticism about punch stats, but they're a rough estimate, right? But he ended the fight at 47, 48% landed, which is amazing. But at one point in this fight, even though he was fighting somebody, by the way, that was being very, very defensive minded, by the way, all right? He was not fighting somebody that was trying to win the fight. Let's just make that clear. The guy he fought was trying to survive the fight. But even then, Calix was landing Zayas was landing, all right? Over 50%, which is amazing. I don't think people realize how hard it is to land 50% of your punches on a professional prize fighter that knows how to box. You know what I mean? That's very difficult. You know what I mean? Yep. He was doing that. Now it dropped a little bit in the second half, but he was cutting off the way he was cutting off the ring, the way all the things that I see he needs to improve on. I'm not even worried about because he's only 19, right? I'm looking at the habits, okay? Armani on Mestica, by the way, we had him on ATP. I want to get him back on. Come on, H-Money. You got to get on that, H-Money. I'm just telling you right now. But that's it. I want him on tomorrow. But he looked good too, by the way. Great kid. But I'm going to tell you, man, right? I'm going to tell everybody right now, right? Xander Zayas, to me, is the future of Puerto Rican boxing, and he's a future of one of the top dudes in boxing. Period. Okay,
it's all there. You can tell he's got the mental fortitude.
Dude, the punch placement and punch variety is phenomenal to me. Like the way he kind of like just throws and sees what's open while he's throwing is unbelievable to me. Like at that age, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The way he was landing the uppercut between the guard, like just threading that needle, like it was impressive to me. Against someone who's moving. How many times, like, what did Berlanga say after his fight? Oh, well, he was running the whole fight, right? Which, I mean, but you were fighting Steve Rolls. You should have known. Like it was a hunting game. You were supposed to take out the prey. Like, that's what it was, okay? Xander just did his work. He took his time. And here's the difference between both guys. One guy knows he has all the time in the world. He's only 19. And he's improving, and he knows he is. And he ain't even sweating it. He's like, if the knockout comes, it comes. If it doesn't, I'm good. The other guy, the hourglass, he's running out of time. I got to get the knockout early or I'm a failure. Like it's just two different things.
Yeah. And another guy who was active this past weekend, Regis Prograis. That's a guy who needs to get more active. They put him out in Dubai. I'm assuming they threw him some money to fight out there against a guy who just wasn't that good, but at least he was active. At least he caught a body, and at least he got his call out after the fight. He called out Catterall, but it looks like Catterall would be the second in line from what I'm hearing, and Zepeda is going to be the guy once that Josh Taylor drops these belts. He's going to fight for one of the belts that Josh Taylor drops against Zepeda, which is a great fight. Great fight. So it looks like we were talking about Prograis moving to 47. It looked like his days at 140 were pretty much done, but it looks like his future's at 140. Maybe he found strength and conditioning.
Bro, I think
we can get him to 140 comfortably, and that's going to be where he stays. And there's going to be a vacuum there for guys to fill.
Yeah, but Prograis has never been like a big 140 to me. Right. You know,
he
does look like a natural 140 pounder to me. He really does.
And he's
but not just that. You did hear the rumors, right? Like that he might be fighting Zepeda.
Zepeda for one of the belts, yeah.
Zepeda versus Brood.
And then you're gonna have Ramirez
Count me in.
Teofimo is the top in line for one of the belts as well. So there are,
dude.
They're gonna be unification fights there that are good. Like Prograis gonna fight Zepeda, then you
Prograis, Zepeda.
Teofimo's gonna fight. Catterall is there, and then you got Jose Ramirez is still there.
Bro, Jose Zepeda versus Regis Prograis. Sign me. That it don't even have to be for a belt, by the way. I'll just watch that fight just to watch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just putting that out there right now. But I think right now would be if Josh Taylor moves up, right?
Which he will.
I think Top Rank should think about putting on a tournament. Get 8 guys and do a tournament. They could pull it off, or maybe the World Boxing Super Series could do it. But you could have Teofimo Lopez in there, Jose Zepeda, Regis Prograis, and there's some. I don't know if Branchik will still be in the mix or not, but that's another guy you could put in the mix. There's some Puerto Rican fighters you could put in the mix as well. The guy that lost to Broner, but we really know beat Broner.
Right.
I forget his name. But you got other guys on there. You know what I mean? That like can be part of that. So why not? I mean, that's something I would do personally, but even then, man, I'm telling you, Catterall obviously is still in the mix. So a lot of great stuff, man. Okay. Sean Zepeda, Nando, I agree, man. I think that's a great fight. And you know what? I don't even know who I'm picking yet, to be honest with you.
You know who I'm rolling with.
Well, I know I know you're cheering for, but I mean,
I do though.
You got to think about it for a little bit, right?
You and I both felt that Prograis beat Taylor, correct?
I felt. You know what's funny about that? I actually picked Taylor to win, but I scored it for Prograis.
So let's say Prograis gets that decision, and he's likely. I think he matches up well with Ramirez, and
yes,
you're talking about possible top 10 pound for pound guy at that point. A guy who's undisputed at 140 pounds. So
that's how much a decision can mean, brother.
That's how much a decision can mean between possibly being undisputed and then being beltless. and nobody has a reason to fight a guy who nobody wants to fight. That's how much a
But
decision
here's
can
the
do.
thing: Chance paid a southpaw. Okay,
Yeah.
so they're gonna be marrying each other pretty much. Okay, but that straight left, bro,
Yeah, Zepeda's
is
nice.
is something. And here's another thing, and a lot of Ramirez fans are not gonna like hearing this. You know how we say a lot of people felt that Progress beat Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of people feel Jose Cepeda beat Ramirez,
Right.
right? So you could argue that the undisputed fight should have been Progress versus Cepeda.
Mm-hmm.
They could make that argument,
True.
you know. So like we're seeing a fight that potentially should have been for number one, number two, right? But fate didn't have it that way. Now, look, I'm not complaining. The Taylor Progress fight could have gone either way, right? And Cepeda Ramirez could have gone either way. But what I'm saying is, this fight is a big deal. And for those that have been saying, I'm ready for Progress to step back up against the top dogs. Well, this is a top dog. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm ready for this fight. I'm just telling you right now. I'm ready. Let's go.
That's a great fight. 140 is heating up. If Taylor drops those belts, it's heating up. But this brings me to my next topic before we get to boxing trivia is American boxing. Sort of the sad state of it. And I know there are some gray clouds in that black sky. Like I've spoke about this. For the most part, I like what Haney did in 2021, beating Linares, beating Jojo Diaz, and it looks likely like he's going to get the Cambosos fight. So good trajectory there. I like what Shakur Stevenson's doing. Had a win against Herring. Now he's fighting Oscar Valdez. But there's a sad state in American boxing. And let me start off why I think that. Stats. I went into BoxRec and I pulled up the top 50 guys. And the reason, I understand BoxRec's top pound for pound list is very flawed. None of us like it.
Very.
But the reason I bring it up is I can go deep because everybody else does a top 10 pound for pound list. BoxRec goes as far as you want to go. So I can pick out the top 50. So that gives me enough American fighters to enough of a sample size. So in that top 50 in the world, 19 are American, which is good. But here's the thing. Here's the problem. In 2021, the 19 American fighters that were in that top 50, guess how many times they fought combined? 23. 23 fights combined.
Like all together, all 19?
All 19 together in 2021. So you're talking about
Jesus Christ.
The reason I bring this up is people keep telling me you need to support American fighters more. You have these content creators. You need to support American fighters. You need to support American fighters. And back in the day, I was like that too. But I'm at the point as a boxing fan, whoever gives me the most entertaining fights more frequently is who I'm cheering for. I don't care where you're at. I don't care if you're from Eastern Europe, South America, Antarctica, Canada, wherever you're from. I don't care where you're from. I'm going to support you if you're giving me entertaining fights often. I'm just not on that.
Oh, yeah, I'm a registered boxer in Antarctica. I'm number one. I'm just letting everybody know right now. I rule that continent.
But you've got only 3 of them fought no times. Half of 9 of them, D-Style, fought once. You only had 7 of them fight twice last year. 7 American fighters in the top 50 pound for pound fought more than once. None of them fought 3 times. None of them.
That's
not
crazy.
One. So you have chronic inactivity that we talked about. But I'll break it even further. So far in 2022, we're 3 months in, 6 fights combined in 3 months between those top American fighters.
We're 3 months in.
But these, I'll go even further.
We're 3 months in now. You know what I mean? I'm just...
Out of the other guys who haven't fought, 7 of them don't even have anything lined up.
Man.
So what are we doing? That's what I'm saying. What are we doing? We've got to get these guys in the ring. We've got to get them in the ring. What are we doing? But people tell me this all the time. You have to support these guys. You have to support these guys. I'm not supporting them blindly based off the flag anymore. I'm not. Like, you got to give me something to cheer for. How am I supposed to support guys that aren't fighting? And why do I support guys who aren't supporting me as a fan? What are you giving me to
Yeah,
support?
but who are
Nothing.
these people? Like, in other words, right? Like it would keep it real for a second. So,
I
I
know
look,
what you're gonna ask, but they're out. I'm telling you, I don't want to name names. I'm not gonna name drop, but
like,
they're
of
out
course, I got you. But here's the thing. So, like, are you telling me that the people saying this type of stuff, like they're buying like Joe Smith merch? Is that what you're telling me?
there.
Like they're
Yeah.
like Joe Smith fans as well, or is Joe Smith not included in the
So
America?
I'm hearing like we should support guys like Crawford, Errol Spence Jr., the Charlo brothers. I think that's the big duo right now that we should be supporting. The Charlo brothers, Devin Haney, guys like that, Boo Boo Andre. And there are particular content creators on YouTube, I'm not going to name names,
Mm.
who are really hammering this home that we need to be supporting the American fighters because they see what's going on in the UK, they see what's going on in Japan, and they see seats
Right.
full.
Well, look, here's what I was going to touch on. So, it is true to a certain degree. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it 100 here. That in other countries, it appears to be okay to be nationalistic, and you know what I mean, and support your countrymen. Like in the UK, Japan, you just mentioned it. Other countries, Ukraine. Like if Lomachenko fought, they probably sell out a stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Australia, they really support their fighters like that. And I get that to a certain degree, right? But the reality is, in the United States, we've almost built this country to be like a neutral domain for all fighters to come fight over here, because this is where most fighters come to fight for big fights. Not all the time, but for the most part, right? I want to support American fighters just as much as the next person, all right?
I do, believe me, I do.
But at the same time, I'm not going to be at the mercy of these fighters. Like you don't just get my support just because. In other words, you know what I mean? Like, no, you're gonna have to do some. Like you have to start doing some stuff to gain my support. But here's the problem, Calix. All right, Jose Ramirez, technically speaking, is American, right? He's from California. He was born here. I don't see these content creators saying, "Hey, everybody, we got to get behind Jose Ramirez." You know what I mean? Joe Smith is American. I
Are
don't
we
see
counting Oscar Valdez as American?
I mean, I'm not sure where Valdez was born, or like, to be honest with you, but nonetheless, I mean, we don't need to just go with him. We'll go with plenty of fighters, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of fighters that were born here that are American that I don't see this content creator saying, "Hey, you got to support these Americans," right? I'm just not seeing that. Like, I'm just not. Like these same content creators, all right, are just being very convenient with what they're saying. Like, what they're doing is, let me just put it this way: if you need to shame people into supporting you, you're probably not doing what you need to do as a fighter, right? You should like Sugar Ray Leonard didn't need to shame anybody to supporting him. Hagler didn't need to shame people into supporting him, or to acknowledge that he's a great middleweight. He was just a great middleweight, like point blank, period, right? Bernard Hopkins didn't to shame anybody into anything. Like, he kind of made everybody acknowledge him as the middleweight king, whether you like it or not. This is what I am. I've arrived, right? So all I will say is that in the United States, boxing is very tribal, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Point blank, period. And I'm not saying that's right, that's wrong. I'm just telling people that's what it is,
Mm-hmm.
right? And at the end of the day, a lot of these tribal fan bases will use things like, "Oh, I'll support the American," but they don't really support all American fighters themselves, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? I've been supporting American fighters my whole fucking life, right? That's why I was a big Andre Ward fan. You know, since he won the Olympics, I was a fan of Wilder when he won the bronze medal and he became pro.
Me too.
Right? The reason I stopped supporting Wilder is because he came up with the craziest conspiracy theories why he lost a damn fight. That's why I stopped supporting him. It had nothing to do with where he's from and him not being American, right? The reason I was supporting him in the first place was because he was American. But at the end of the day, at some point though, right? As fans, we do have a right to support who we want to support. All fans do, okay? And if we're going to be America, the land of freedom and all that, then people have the freedom to support whoever they want to support, right? If you need to shame people into supporting you, then there's a problem, in my opinion. Like point blank period.
If you do, then you're not doing what you need to do, and that's exactly my point with the chronic inactivity. 19 of the top 19 American fighters fighting 23 times in a year is inexcusable. It's not excusable. How do you back that up? And that's what I'm saying. You have to give me something as a fan to support. And if you're not going to be very active, be 154 Charlo. 154 Charlo fought once last year. He's likely going to fight once this year, but meaningful fights. And 154 Charlo is fighting meaningful fight after meaningful fight after meaningful fight. And he lost and he came back. He avenged that loss. He's fighting. He's mixing it up. Compare that to his brother, 160 Charlo. And that's what I'm talking about. It's if you're going to be chronically inactive, give me something to watch. Don't be chronically inactive and then come out there, stroll out there and give me a half-hearted effort against an average fighter and then say, why aren't you supporting me? No, I'm not here for that. 23 fights.
If you have, if Mike Tyson's begging you, pleading with you to call somebody out on his podcast, like Mike Tyson's podcast is the biggest boxing podcast on the planet, right? There is no bigger podcast when it comes to boxing than on Mike Tyson's show, right? When he's telling you, hey, call out Benavidez, call him out, like, no, I don't need to fight Benavidez. Like, what are you doing?
What's he bring to the table?
What does he bring to the table? Like, why are you saying that? You just had Mike Tyson call him the Mexican monster, bro. What you say is, oh, you think he's a Mexican monster, Mike? Well, how about I knock him the fuck out? Okay, are you gonna give me my credit after I knock out your boy? That's what you say. Okay, you don't say, nah, he ain't no monster. Like what? So when you do fight him and you beat him, right? Then people will turn around and say, well, I mean, you said he wasn't that good, so. I mean, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone right now, but I will say this: the days of America dominating the boxing world the way it did in the past is, I'm not saying it's over, but it's never going to be at that level again. The world's caught up. You know, it's like you're not going to see another dream team. Not just because like that was a hell of a collection of basketball players that they had, right? But it was that plus the world wasn't as caught up. You know what I mean? And in boxing, they're more caught up, in my opinion, than even basketball. You know, like the world. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So like we're not gonna dominate like that again. And not only that, we're just all the fights are almost. You can find all the fights now, whether it's on the Zone, whether it's on ESPN Plus, ESPN, on like we're seeing more quote unquote foreign fighters main event be featured than ever. Okay, whereas a lot of these fighters in the past, like I mean, when did we see Calazag on U.S. television until he fought Hopkins, or not Hopkins, Manfredo? Was that the first time they put him on TV here?
He was against Manfredo on HBO. Yeah.
Yeah, like they had like people were like, "Who is this guy?" Like, what do you mean?
The Calzaghe fight was here. The Jeff Lacey fight.
Maybe the Jeff Lacey fight, but what I'm saying is those. By the way, that was one example of a fight where.
No, it was the Kessler fight. It was the Kessler fight.
But the Jeff Lacey fight should have been the first time we realized, or people should have realized. You know, just because the guy's American doesn't mean he's going to go beat up that European over there. Like like those days are over. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like point blank period. Like, those days are done. All right. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, At the end of the day, I'm rolling with whoever gives me the most entertainment. But let's just go with who. Who do you see as the top fighters, American fighters now? I mean, I pretty much say everybody would say Crawford and
Mhm.
Spence, but who do you see coming up in this next crop? Because to me, it's Shakur. I love Shakur. I love what's going on with him. I love the fact he's coming off the Herring win. He's fighting Valdez. He wanted the Valdez fight. Valdez wanted the Stevenson fight. He's behaving like a fighter, and Top Rank is treating him like a fighter they trust, right? We'll give you the Valdez fight. And he's a big favorite against Valdez. I
Okay,
don't
and he
know if
has
that's
wins
warranted or not,
over
but he's a big favorite. Another guy I like, and I'm giving him credit, Devin Haney. However we think he looked against Linares, he won the fight. He won the fight against Jojo Diaz, and he wants the Kim. It looks like he wants the Kim, but we'll see if he goes to Australia. But if he does go to Australia for that fight, D-Style, we're going to give him the utmost credit for that.
Of course, of course. Look, all I could say is this: there's obviously Boots Ennis, and a lot of these. By the way, a lot of these same channels and content creators that say things like, "Oh, support the American, the up and comers." Like, well, I mean, Virgil Ortiz is American too. You know what I mean? That's another American that's on the come up. Virgil Ortiz. You know, he's there. You know, and he's active too. So I mean, and obviously he fell ill, and there was just circumstances in his case. But you got Virgil Ortiz, you got Boots Ennis. I mean, those are two guys that you got. You got Bam Rodriguez. That's another American, right?
Yeah.
I hope a lot of these channels talking about support the American are talking about Bam Rodriguez, right? I mean, I would hope, right? So you got Bam Rodriguez. You got David Morale Jr. is Cuban, but is he? I guess he's nationalized.
Yeah, because I see that Arislandi Lara is considered an American fighter now too. So
yeah, because you're automatically nationalized if you're Cuban.
right.
And I don't know if that's still the case. I don't know. I'm kind of. It is okay. So, I mean, technically speaking, right? He called himself the American Dream and all that. So there you go. But yeah, I think those are the guys that are up and coming. Those are some guys I just mentioned that people need to be on the lookout for. And there you go.
Yeah, but I think to me, the guy that I'm looking at right now, if I had to pinpoint one, that 2 years from now, I think it's going to be that guy. I think it's Shakur.
Mm.
And I wasn't saying that after the Nakatilia fight, but I saw so much in him after the Herring.
You got to get through Valdez first, but I hear you.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like if he were to beat the fact that they're putting him in there with Valdez after the Herring fight, and Valdez too. I mean, Valdez could be that guy. Let's say Valdez shocks Stevenson. But I think Stevenson has that trajectory. I think he's going to be that guy. Boots could be that guy. I hope Virgil Ortiz gets things going again. From what I'm hearing, he could be moving to 154 sooner than we think. So we'll see how that power and that the pressure fighting translates to 154. So there are a lot of question marks there. But I mean, ultimately, I need these guys to be more active. We just need them to be more. We need more activity in boxing. I mean, 2 times a year right now is super active. Canelo is carrying the sport, and it's not even close. Like nobody is close to Canelo right now. Nobody's even close. This guy fought 3 fights in a year, and they were all meaningful fights, D-Style. 4 times in 12 months, meaningful fights. And these other guys are fighting once, maybe twice in a year.
I think
he's lapping them.
I think the fact that the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world is active is a good thing. I hope that creates a new precedent. And what's going to start happening is this, okay? Right now, Calix, we're living through the time of protecting the O, and that's because Floyd Mayweather was a number 1 pound for pound. He was the biggest draw in boxing, right? And as they say, imitation is the greatest form of flattery. So what our promoters doing, what our managers doing, they're trying to protect guys' O. Mm-hmm. They're trying to make guys like the next Mayweather. They're trying to, they're kind of skipping the whole pretty boy phase and they're going straight to the money May phase, right? Let's protect that O. Let's be, strategic. Let's tell people he's still got that O. There's no blueprint to beat him. Let's go that direction, right? And this is similar to the way it was after Ali retired. You had a lot of guys fighting the way Ali fought, and there's always like something left after a legacy of a fighter. There's something that always people try to remake that again, right? Mm-hmm. And the reality that is what we're kind of going through right now. We're living through a phase right now. But what's going to start happening is that a lot of these guys, this is just the truth, they're nowhere near as good as Floyd Mayweather. Mm-mm. All right. They were not tested and brought up the way Mayweather, like the way Mayweather was brought up, okay, and the experience he had from 130 to 135, right, made him to the great fighter that he was, okay? So a lot of these guys don't have that experience. A lot of these guys are going to be losing, just like Broner lost. So, and they're going to have multiple losses. And before you know it, what's going to happen naturally, okay, is that a lot of guys are going to make comebacks after losses. A lot of guys are going to lose their old, but they're going to come back and win again. And people are going to realize that losing just isn't that big of a deal. Every other generation always knew this, but for some reason that O is so coveted now, and they're being so careful with it, right? But it's a myth. I mean, it's just not true. Jermell lost, yet he's doing a lot better than his undefeated brother.
Yeah.
Okay. Like that's just the reality. Canelo lost, yet he's the number one pound for pound fighter in the world.
Yeah.
A lot of jets are going to be losing. They're not all going to stay undefeated forever. I'm just telling you right now.
Before we get to boxing trivia, I'll piggyback 2 points off of that. Number one, the O. And you made the point. It's a myth. I mean, I just don't understand. The great athletes of all time would take basketball. Bird and Magic left the game better than they found it. Then they passed it to Jordan, who left the game better than he found it. LeBron, as great as he is, and I was talking about this with somebody on Saturday, off camera. Mm-hmm. As great as LeBron is, and he's the second greatest player I've seen with these eyes, but as great as he is, to be, when we talk about the lists, the top 100 of all time, to leave that legacy, you have to leave the game better than you found it, the sport better than you found it. And to me, as great as LeBron is, he didn't leave the game. He's not leaving the game better than when he found it, in my opinion. In many ways, it's gotten worse. And the same thing with Mayweather. As great as he's arguably the greatest I've ever seen with my eyes. I mean, Pacquiao's up there. Roy Jones will always be up there for me. But I don't feel like he left the sport better than where he found it, right? So the difference is Canelo understands that. Canelo understands legacy. So Canelo understands I got to leave this sport better than when I found it. You can see when Canelo reaches out to younger fighters, Canelo doesn't have to be there. Canelo doesn't have to be in an undercard, 5 fights before the main event, screaming at the top of his lungs for a fighter in there in the ring. But Canelo understands he's leaving a legacy. He's leaving a blueprint for these younger guys. He wants to leave the sport, I think, genuinely better than where he found it. So I think boxing will be better for it 10 years from now, although I really, really, really have my concerns that this generation won't happen. But I just think as a boxing fan, it has to. History shows that we'll have this next crop coming up. And I think Canelo will leave it better.
A lot of here's the final thing I'll say about this. A lot of these fans, a lot of these guys, and there's nothing wrong with this, but I just want to make sure I point this out. A lot of guys started watching boxing because of Floyd. Maybe it was the De La Hoya fight. Maybe it was after the De La Hoya fight. They started becoming, they were Mayweather fans, right? They saw, okay, here's this fighter in the sport that I don't really follow, but he's undefeated, right? He's never lost. And all they hear is, oh, the blueprint to beat me. I've never lost. I'm undefeated. No, nobody ever beat me, yada, 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 right? I'm the best of all time. I'm the TBE, right? All this other stuff. And that's all they saw. They witnessed it, and he finished his career undefeated. Just one thing I've just noticed is like a lot of those fans went from Mayweather to Andre Ward, right? And then Andre Ward, what happened with him? He ended his career undefeated, right? And then a lot of them went to Wilder after Ward retired, right? Wilder was undefeated for a while. So after that, right, just think about it. You're someone who got into boxing because of Floyd Mayweather. You're following Mayweather's career, and then Ward, and you're just kind of used to this like kind of manifest destiny kind of mentality. Like, well, that's what greatness does. They don't lose. So you know what I mean? Like, and then what happens? He loses to Fury. Wilder does. So that explains the reaction that a lot of us boxing fans were like, why are they acting this way? Well, it's just a loss. Like, what? Like, well, that's what it is, because they went through years of following Floyd, then a couple of years of Ward, then some years of Wilder, and then he loses, and look at how they react. They came up with some of the craziest conspiracy theories I've ever heard, ever, in the sport of boxing, like numero uno on top. So that's what we're going through now. Now, what's happening right now is, like I saw with Fulton, right?
Another
Fulton,
great one. Another great American fighter.
Yeah, he's going to annihilate Figueroa. And I'm like, well, look, I like Fulton, but he's not exactly Pretty Boy Floyd either. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so I felt Figueroa won, by the way, but I thought it was close. But there is a lot of this mentality that, no, these guys are going to go their whole career and never lose, right? Like, nah. A lot of them are going to lose at some point. It's what's going to happen. Yeah, there's always one or two in the pack to come out and defeat it in any era. But I do think we are in the Floyd Mayweather clone era right now. That's where we are. Okay. Right. And until these clones start losing, like one of the first clones we saw was what? Broner. Okay. Yeah. But as they start losing, like the day's going to come where Haney's going to lose, in my opinion. I don't think Haney's going to stay undefeated his whole career. I just don't. You know, so like they're going to start losing. And I think a lot of these new fans, I call them, are going to know what we already know, that losing isn't a big deal. That fighters could get better. They could come back. Losses happen. They're just going to have to, like, they're going to have to go through it the way we went through it.
Yeah.
Like, bro, I went through it when I was like a little kid and I saw Chavez lose to fucking to Frankie Randall, and I was like, he lost. What? Like, but I was like a little kid, you know. And then it's, you know, when the lawyer lost to Trinidad, like whatever. Like you just learn these things. It's no big deal, you know.
Yeah, losses are losses, and for boxers, I think one last point for boxers, I think it's become a bigger deal because the training camps are longer and the amount of times they're fighting is more infrequent, right? So they're doing 8 to 10 to 12 week training camps, a ton of sparring. They're investing more into a single fight than fighters of past eras. I mean, you go back a century, they were training 2 weeks in between fights. Then it became 4 to 5 weeks. Now we're talking about 8 to 10 to 12 week training camps, fighting once a year. It's ridiculous. So they're investing more into each fight, and each loss becomes more crushing. I think we need to get back to fighting less 4 to 5 week training camps, fighting at least three times per year, and the losses won't be as crushing. And it won't be as bad for fighter safety fighting 3 real fights per year, 2 real fights per year if your training camps are 4 to 5 weeks. I don't know. That's just me though. Boxing trivia. Let's get to it to finish this thing off. We got a short one tonight. Only 3 questions, and they're not hard. And the first 2 are dedicated to Danny Garcia. He turns 34 years old today, or yesterday. So we're going to get to some Danny Garcia questions, and only 3 questions this week. And we're going to get to transition to the shoe shine after the boxing trivia. But as always, get live. Make sure you hit the live button and that you are live. I'm going to ask 3 questions here. So question number 1. Danny Garcia's first loss came at the hands of this fighter in 2017. We're starting off with an easy one. Danny Garcia's first loss came to this fighter in 2017. Go.
All right, there you go, guys. You gotta get it, bro. You gotta get it. I don't see Rob PMC in the building, by the way. Who's the reigning champion?
Mario P. The GOAT Mario P got it. Keith Thurman. The GOAT Mario P got the first question right. It is Keith Thurman. He got in right before Lil Penny and Lee Groves. It is Keith Thurman. So let's go to question number 2. Sandwiched in between his losses to Keith Thurman and Sean Porter, Danny Garcia defeated this fighter by TKO. Who was it?
Uh-oh.
Who did Danny Garcia defeat between his losses to Sean Porter and Keith Thurman? Who did he defeat by KO?
Y'all just gonna let Mario P just dominate, right? That's what y'all gonna do.
I got it. Lee Groves got it.
Lee Groves in the building. There we go, bro. There we go. All right.
Lee Groves in the building. He's got one. The GOAT Mario P's got one, and we got one question left.
There you go.
Yeah, but that's right. He defeated Brandon Rios by TKO.
That's right. That's right.
Question number 3, and the last question. This UK fighter lost to both Canelo Alvarez and Kell Brook in a 3-fight span. UK-based fighter lost to Canelo and Kell Brook. He is also the brother of a more legendary UK-based fighter. Name that fighter. Who is it? The GOAT Mario P got it. It is Matthew Hatton. And by the way, shockingly, Matthew Hatton didn't get knocked out by Canelo or Kell Brook. So you got to give him credit there. A lot of people see Matthew Hatton as a journeyman opponent, but Canelo didn't knock him out. He went 12. And Kell Brook didn't knock him out either. So there we go.
It's true.
That being said, give me your final thoughts, D-Style, on this Monday night.
Well, look, obviously, I think American fight fans need to realize 2 things, right? One, we don't hold a monopoly in this in the boxing world. We just don't. Like we don't. What do we have to show that proves we have a monopoly in the sport? Like, are we winning more gold medals than everybody? Are we, are we like what are we doing exactly to prove that? Right? Boxing is a global sport. I am kind of tired of seeing fans say things like, oh, Canelo hasn't fought an American fighter in X amount of time. Well, it's not Canelo's fault that the Americans at 175 lost to Bivol and to Beterbiev. You know what I mean? Like maybe those Americans would have won their fights. Okay, they could have been there. Like I'm just saying. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, whether it's Marcus Brown, you got the hardworking man at 175. They lost to Bivol and they lost to, Arthur Beterbiev respectively. So there is Americans competing in these weight classes, but it's not Canelo's fault that those Americans are not at the top level in those weight classes.
Right.
It's not Canelo's fault that Anthony Durrell isn't at the top level. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not his fault. Like, it's and by the way, Benavidez is American. I just put that out there. Okay. Yeah. So let's be consistent. When you say American, do you mean all American fighters, right? Or only the American fighters you like, right? We have to just think about those things, right? So there is no monopoly for American boxing, and that's that.
And that's that. Great point. Shout out to the GOAT Mario P for winning again. He is the boxing trivia champion until next week where he'll defend his belt. Y'all go on over right here. Click that link. Go to the Shoe Shine. That is the next show on this great network. And on that note, we are out of here. Peace. God bless.